When Damian Lillard requested a trade from the Portland Trail Blazers in July, shortly after the start of free agency, most people weren't surprised by this decision. I think most thought this should have happened years ago, both for Dame himself and for the Blazers. But what was surprising is just how adamant Lillard has been in wanting to go to one team and one team only, and that being the Miami Heat. Even going as far as telling his agents, which has then been relayed to teams, that he will not be reporting to camp for any team unless it's the Heat, which I already made a video on that whole situation a while back when the trade demand first came out. But since that time, the Blazers have held pretty firm that 1, they're not going to limit their trade options to just the Heat, as that would severely impact their leverage in trade negotiations, but 2, that they're willing to hold out as long as possible for the right deal, even if it means they get to training camp and the start of the season and Dame is still on the roster. All of that said, though, there is this new mystery Eastern Conference team, according to Mark Spears, that has entered the fray in the Damian Lillard sweepstakes, that has been in trade discussions with the Blazers, that just might sweep in and steal Dame away from the Heat. Who is that team? Well, let's talk about it. As always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, it would mean a great deal to me if you subscribed, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, I do want to be clear that all this has come about from a comment by Mark Spears that was made the other day, in which he stated, I'm kind of hearing rumors about a Eastern Conference team that I'm not going to throw out there just yet, meaning being in trade rumors for the Damian Lillard sweepstakes, which is super vague and honestly could mean nothing. And Mark Spears, while I do view him as a somewhat credible NBA insider, he has been wrong in the past, but it's the dead of the offseason and we're going to react to it. At the end of the day, I do still think Dame will ultimately end up in Miami, whether that be at the start of training camp, the beginning of the season, or even sometime during the season. But I do think he'll ultimately be in a Miami Heat uniform by the trade deadline of this upcoming season at the latest. That said, though, as far as what mystery Eastern Conference team this could be, I really see it being one of 2 teams, and really just one team as the heavy favorite. And no, sorry to say for all of my fellow Bulls fans out there, it's not the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls, simply put, do not have the assets or the appropriate fit to where it would make sense, because you would effectively have to gut your roster to get Damian Lillard, which would include trading Zach LaVine, all of your younger players, and any and all draft capital that you might have. And after that, what are you left with? An aging DeMar and Damian Lillard with little to no assets for the future just doesn't make sense. The Bulls are out. But the team, if I had to guess, that Mark Spears is likely referring to is the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, here's the thing. When you look across the Eastern Conference at teams not named the Miami Heat, and you look at realistic destination targets for Lillard, for those teams that actually have a shot at competing, which is what Lillard wants, and teams that actually have the trade chips to make a deal work, it's the Sixers. Now, how would a trade for these Sixers and Blazers that would make sense for both sides actually work? Well, for the Sixers, 1, they know they need to move on from James Harden. As much as they're trying to play hardball and expecting Harden to report to camp, he's the type of player that is going to cause more problems than not if you try and keep him around and make this thing work. And the Sixers also know they're not going to get the kind of value they would like to get in return for James Harden. I mean, in their view, he's a superstar level player and they should get a superstar level package in return, but it's just not going to happen. Teams are going to be wary of trading a big package for an aging James Harden who has been a toxic player and is on an expiring contract. He still has trade value because he's James Harden, but he's not going to net you the crazy return that they're expecting. But that said, the Sixers are wanting a superstar caliber player in return for Harden. Well, Damian Lillard, not only is he a superstar player, but he's a better player than James Harden, isn't a headache like Harden has been, and by bringing in Dame, that ensures you're keeping your title hopes alive, and more importantly, you're keeping your franchise player in Joel Embiid happy so that he doesn't start requesting a trade later on down the line. That said, though, there's no chance that this would be a straight James Harden for Damian Lillard trade. No, this would cost the Sixers a lot more, and probably more than Daryl Morey is going to be okay with, because for the Blazers, they're not going to be interested in James Harden. The only reason they're going to be willing to take on Harden is if they can get considerable draft capital and young players in return, because the Blazers are going to be looking to rebuild once they eventually move Dame. They've got some great young players between Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, and now Scoot Henderson. Harden is of no interest to them, except for salary matching purposes and acquiring assets that would be required to go with him for taking him off of the Sixers' hands. The Blazers could acquire the assets they want and then also try to flip Harden on an expiring contract for pennies on the dollar to a contending team that is looking for that one piece to get them over the top, maybe say a team like the Clippers. But here is how a trade would work with the Sixers and the Blazers. The Sixers would send James Harden, again, really for salary matching purposes, Tyrese Maxey, DeAnthony Melton, Paul Reed, and the Sixers' 2029 first-round draft pick unprotected in exchange for Damian Lillard. Yes, The Blazers would likely want more in the form of first-round picks, but the Sixers can't actually trade any of their first-round picks until 2029 because of a pick they owe to the Thunder in 25, which has yet to be conveyed yet. But by taking on James Harden, you can likely flip him for some salary filler and a first-round pick. So if you're the Blazers, well, it's still not the haul you would expect for a future Hall of Famer when you don't have a ton of leverage for an aging star and on a big contract. Getting back young players, particularly Tyrese Maxey, he's looking like an up-and-coming star, to put alongside your already budding core, role players in Melton and Reed, as well as a future first, and potentially another first for flipping Harden, is a solid return for a superstar that is demanding a trade when you have limited leverage. For the Sixers, yeah, they're losing Maxey, which I'm sure they don't want to do because he's one of the few bright spots for their future, but at the same time, though, they know they need to go all in trying to win now and maximizing Joel Embiid's prime, and bringing in one of the best guards in the league in Damian Lillard can certainly get you there. The other team, though, that might be in the running for Damian Lillard and the potential mystery team that Spears is alerting to is the New York Knicks, and really because the Knicks are one of the few teams that has the draft capital necessary to make a big push for a superstar level player. They have their own picks from 2024 all the way to 2030 in addition to the Mavs first round pick from the Porzingis trade from a while back, which is top 10 protected, a top 20 protected pick from the Pistons, which might never convey, but is still a trade chip, and a top 13 protected pick from the Wizards. And these protections get lighter and lighter as the years go on, more in the Knicks' favor. For the Knicks, if they really wanted to, they could send the Blazers 4 first round picks. I think it would be a mistake to send out that kind of draft capital for a player who is 33 years old and has a lot of guaranteed money left on his deal all the way into his late 30s, but more so saying that could be an option, and the Blazers would jump all over that to help kickstart their rebuild with more draft picks coming their way. But even if it's not 4 first-round picks, because the Knicks would need to throw in some players for salary matching purposes, let's say even if it's just 2 first-round picks, along with RJ Barrett, mainly a salary filler, but also a young player with upside that would fit their timeline. Evan Fournier, that is really just for salary filler because Dame's contract is so large, and then they can either waive Fournier or flip him for parts in a trade, and then also including in the deal Emmanuel Quickley and Quentin Grimes. So for the Blazers, you're getting 3 promising young players that help you with your rebuild and your youth movement, and you're getting 2 first-round picks, potentially more if they preferred another future first over, say, one of Quickley or Quentin Grimes. And then for the Knicks, for a franchise that has been trying to stay relevant, that has been searching for that first title since the 70s, the biggest market in the NBA, and seeing some semblance of success last season in winning their first playoff series in over a decade, to bring in a player like Damian Lillard, one of the bigger superstars in the league and one of the biggest markets, is huge for them in just their sheer viewership and fandom. Can't say I like the fit. I don't think it would actually make the Knicks a title contending team with Randall, Brunson, and Lillard, especially if they're losing all their young guns and would be in some need of defense as well, but it would be entertaining. It would make the Knicks box office and make them relevant again, that's for sure. But look, as I said before, all of this is kind of just a bunch of smoke at this point. Dame is going to be going to the Heat, whether it's now or by the trade deadline, we don't know. But if there was or is a mystery Eastern Conference team that has suddenly entered the running, my guess is it's most likely the Sixers and a smaller chance of it being the New York Knicks. I would love to hear what you guys think, though. Who do you think is the team that is making a push for Lillard that is not named the Miami Heat? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.